Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Corey Walsh podcast. We're going to be talking to Aram Havan today about the Premier League and how it's coming back very soon, June 17th. We're going to be talking about teams that benefited from this break, teams that didn't. What are these new rule changes going to be like? There's going to be whole types of new strategery in the game as we know it. And overall, what do we think is going to happen in this tight race between 4th, 5th, and 6th in the Prem? And without further ado, let's get on to the podcast with Aram Havan. All right, so coming back on the podcast is Aram Havan. Hello, Aram.
What's up, Corey?
How you been since we last spoke with still a sportsless world, unless you are watching Bundesliga soccer? Question mark.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to watch the games when it's quieter. You get to hear the players communicating with each other, which is interesting.
You are the first person to say you've actually been watching them.
Really?
Yes.
Dude, we have watch parties here.
It's like kind of like the inside joke of the podcast right now. I'm like, you watching Bundesliga soccer?
Yeah.
To be fair, the people we have asked were Ian. So, avid Bayern fan, though. Check his Instagram.
Yeah, soccer IQ of 0.
Oh,
Ian.
wow. Okay. But Aram does not have a particular German team that he is a fan of. He's just a fan of the game because he's that much of a purist.
Yeah, that's facts. That's facts.
What have you been doing besides watching Bundesliga soccer? Apparently.
Well, we can't play on the fields because the fields are being monitored by the town. Although those restrictions are kind of going away slowly. So I have a net set up in my backyard, play some soccer tennis. So.
The locks are getting rusty. I'll just bring out my cutters and I'll take on the world.
Yeah.
So, in case people haven't noticed, there has been an official update. It seems like all the soccer leagues are officially coming back. But we're going to talk specifically about the Premier League. And it comes back the 17th of June, correct?
Yeah, June 17th.
All right, and this is great for Aram because his Manchester United team will still not make it. But so let's talk about it. How do you feel?
Yeah, so on that note, Manchester United, we're on a roll, I'd say, the last month with the addition of Bruno Fernandes. And I think it's interesting that these teams were given breaks and how each team has responded to during the break with some of the rule changes and that are being proposed. But for teams like Man U, Tottenham, and Arsenal kind of underachieving this year, I think it's important that they did rest up and kind of get themselves settled down and kind of jumpstart the second half of the season the way it was supposed to go instead of kind of falling off like they did. I'm excited to see how Tottenham and Arsenal kind of respond and to see how Man U gets back on track.
How do you expect the league to resume? Do you expect because leagues are now showing that they're increasing their substitution numbers? I think it's now 5. But do you think overall the quality of play is going to see a dip from where it was? I feel like obviously from where it was mid-season, but even let's say if they're starting the season over again, do you feel like just because there's been such a lack of training really for at least 2 months that we're going to see the overall play of the Premier League dip?
I think so. I think the intensity will not be the same for sure. I mean, fans change the game. You always play to the advantage of the fans, and if the fans are on your side, they're backing you, then it gives you momentum. It gives you a different type of energy to just attack and attack and attack. But I mean, without fans, I think the intensity will kind of go away, but it might be a lot more tactical. So I mean, I think in terms of intensity, it won't be the same. It might be worse, but it's still a beautiful game. So, let's all just sit down and watch some soccer.
It's at a great time slot. It's right at 8 a.m. It's optimum for 90% of the country who is in their mid-40s.
Yeah.
who
Just
are
wake up
really
at 7:30 and watch boring soccer. That's what you gotta do.
turn on NBC Sports. It's like somewhere if you have DirecTV in the 200s. It's going to take a
Yeah.
while to scramble for it. And there's only going to be 2 games, and the rest you'll have to find a Reddit stream. It's awesome. It's really
I think
made for the
I
States.
think a lot of the games are gonna be shown though, and um, apparently one of the proposals is that they're gonna play every single day. Like there's gonna be a game every day of the week. So it's gonna be the normal weekend schedule where there's games Friday in the afternoon for U.S. Eastern time. It'll be a game at 3, and then Saturday morning 7:30, and then 10, and then 12:30, and then 3, and then Sunday the same schedule. But there's also going to be games Monday through Thursday at 1 and 3. So it's going to be a lot of soccer on TV.
Did they say like how big the gaps are going to be between each team playing their like 2 games? Is it like an exact time, or are they just going to like will a team have to play twice in 1 week, or is it going to still be the once a week type format?
Yeah. So the plan is to complete all 92 remaining fixtures before August 2nd, which is the deadline that UEFA set. So I think what's going to happen is a team will play a game Friday, or like they'll play between Friday and Sunday 1 game, and then their second game will be Monday, any time between Monday and Thursday. So they're supposed to play around 2 games a week on average.
So in a way, do you think this will actually benefit like the youth players, because there's obviously going to be some serious switches in rotation for like
Oh yeah,
there's not going to be
yeah,
like you're going to see the same lineup all the time like you would for the most part
yeah,
with like very little changes.
yeah. That's gonna be it's gonna be cool to see how many players they actually like each squad plays. So a couple things on that is that they're like you said, they're going to try to increase the amount of substitutions from 3 to 5. I actually don't know if that's like finalized yet, but that was one of the proposals. They're trying to add extra 2 players on the bench. So instead of 7 players on the bench, it's going to be 9. And they're also trying to re-register players that were ruled out for the rest of the season. So the squads have to register players halfway through the season for the rest of the season. So players like Paul Dummett, who had like a tendon injury and they're going to be ruled out for the rest of the season, can actually be re-registered for the season restart, and also the youth players. So I think this is going to benefit the youth players a lot. I mean, if teams are playing 2 games a week, you can't possibly in a month and a half, you can't possibly play the same players over and over again.
You can't expect Olivier Giroud to play 2 games in a row. The dude is a
Yeah.
go-kart, for God's sakes. He's not a sweet Ferrari like Kareem.
Yeah.
Benzema.
So it is going to be tough for, I'd say, like the bottom half of the league teams, because like their squads just aren't as deep as the top tier teams. So I'm interested to see what they do.
What other rule changes have you seen that really stood out to you?
Yeah. So there were the 2 games a week. There was
The 3 to
I think I
subs.
think the 3 subs to 5 subs is going to be like a game changer. I'm not sure if that's permanent though. It might just be temporary, just for the rest of the season.
Why do you feel like it's going to be so drastic?
I feel like subs are a big part of a coach's end game strategy. I mean, when the players are tired, every team, I feel like every all-star team has like a player off the bench that comes on and just changes the game. The player that comes to my head right now is he wasn't like an all-star level player, but certainly he did change the games. It was Chicharito on Man U. And he come on like he was the best like substitute goal scorer for like there was some stat about that for like 3 years or something. So if you have, instead of 3 players, you have 5 players. It's interesting because that's like half of your outfield lineup is gonna switch out. So.
And do you feel like more because of conditioning teams will use it, or do you think they're also going to use it strategically?
I think it's going to be you look at it and you think, oh, it's for fitness and conditioning, but I think at some point coaches are gonna use it strategically for sure.
What how do you feel that teams that so that's why you think that teams with lower that are lower in the standing are going to
Yeah,
suffer more because they don't have the resources that these like mega clubs do?
yeah. Their squads just aren't as deeper, so um, like teams in the relegation battles are gonna might suffer from this a little more than teams in the top tier. I mean, there's teams like Brighton that you look at them and they're just they're just good like overall teams, and they're very fit, and they can run all day, and that's how they compete with the top tier teams. They might not have the skill to match, but they definitely pride themselves over their fitness levels. So
So the darling of this season seems to really be the Wolves, and right now they currently lie in sixth, only 2 points behind your beloved Man U. But do you feel like their momentum is basically going to be halted now because not only with this gap in the season, but also like you said, like they are a very talented team, but they're not a deep team in the same way
yeah,
that the eighth and ninth team currently, or even you could argue 12th with Tottenham, Arsenal, and Everton.
yeah, um, yeah. The Wolves were having a good season, so it might be tough. Well, the Wolves and Sheffield United were both having good good seasons, and Sheffield's actually another good example of a team that might not have the skill to match the top tier teams, but they're up there because they work together and they're very fit. So when the bench starts getting deeper, you start adding two more players to the bench and you start increasing the subs to five. Teams like Sheffield and Wolves might suffer a little bit because they pride themselves over their fitness. That's why they're competing up there. So when more talented teams have more subs, they kind of I feel like that might cancel out the fitness a little bit, not too much, but a little bit. So I think that it's interesting to see what Sheffield and Wolves will do when the season restarts.
So, do you feel as if who do you think out of like Wolves, Sheffield? Do you think which one do you think has a better chance of staying in the top six and earning a European competition spot?
I think Wolves. I think Wolves.
Why?
They definitely, if you look on paper, the Wolves just have more skilled players. They have players that they're kind of wild cards. I don't really see many wild cards that can take the game by the scruff of the but and just change it completely. Like they have Ruben Neves, they have Jimenez, they have
Adama.
so like this. Yeah, they have Adama Traore, just absolute monster. Um,
Hulk.
physically. So
Hulk
yeah,
in real life.
yeah. And when you look at Sheffield, they're coached really well. They're disciplined, um, but there's not really they don't really have game changers on that team. So I think the Wolves might have the advantage over them.
Speaking of Adama Traore, did you see the pictures of how much muscle he has lost since quarantine started?
Oh no, I have not. That's so disappointing.
He because there's that like famous picture with him just flexing his bicep that looks like it could
Yeah,
crush like a bus with kids in it,
yeah,
and now he just looks like your typical creatine guy at the gym, which
yeah,
does not sound like a downgrade, but when you're talking about Adama Traore, it is a major downgrade to say the least.
yeah.
um, so another team that was notable before coronavirus even really took place was Manchester City for all the wrong reasons. And I don't care if there are Man City fans out there listening. This is going to be us talking about how your team is corrupt. So,
Right.
uh, I guess bad has gone to worse for Manchester City because not only is this they're like one of their last seasons for a few years of being able to be competitive and compete for spots, but at the same time, now they have this huge gap, and there's already rumors that were going on during all this that a lot of their players are basically deciding they're going to leave. So, how do you think Manchester City is just not benefiting from this coronavirus at all?
Yeah. Yeah, they got hit hard, uh, to say the least. But I was gonna. in terms of like the season itself, I think Man City's in a pretty neutral spot. I mean, they're 25 points away from Liverpool, uh, under Liverpool. So, I mean, 2 games away. Liverpool's 2 games away from clinching the title. So I think, I mean, they're not really in that bad of a spot in terms of the table.
Oh,
But
I just meant more in terms of like European play, because
yeah,
the Champions
yeah,
League thing is still up on the table.
yeah. So is that actually finalized? Are they not going to be in the Champions League
I think
next two
this is
years?
their last year of being
Okay,
allowed for like 2 years.
okay. Yeah. So I mean, that just it sucks. I mean, that it sucks to be a Man City player, and it's especially Pep Guardiola too, someone who, arguably the best manager in the world right now. So it's tough. I mean, he says he's going to stay, so I don't know what he's going to do next year.
I feel like the
Um,
man lives for that competition.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, he's such a accomplished manager. I can't see him not wanting to compete in the Champions League. But I mean, he says he's going to stay no matter what. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen.
If you had to power rank the top 5 managers in the BPL right now, who would they be?
So I feel like the game is kind of changing, and managers need to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
So for that reason, I wouldn't really put Mourinho in the discussion with Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola, but I'd still put him at fifth. So this is his time to show us that he can adapt, because the game has changed since 10 years ago when he won the treble with Inter Milan. So I'm interested to see like what he can do with Tottenham. I mean, he has such a bad injury-stricken roster, so
Mm-hmm.
it's tough to criticize him. But I mean, if he wants to prove to us that he is the best manager, the special one like he claims he is, then this is the chance. So I'd put him at fifth. I'd put Brendan Rodgers up there at fourth, because Brendan Rodgers, I think he definitely got unlucky with Liverpool when they came close and didn't win. But I think he's such a smart, level-headed manager. And to bring Leicester City to second and third this season is I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I know they won the title, but they should be a relegation battle team, and they're in third. So I think he's doing a good job there. Um, Not really sure about Ollie. Ollie's kind of I can't really tell. Such a roller coaster of a season. I mean, at the start of the season, I'd honestly go as far as to say that he might be the worst manager. And then with Bruno Fernandes, I mean, it looked like a completely different team. So not really sure. I'm not going to put him up there now. But third is, who would you say for third? Because I think Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola are definitely first and second. And I don't know which one of them is better, but I don't know who to put at third. I'm not really sure.
Honestly, I feel like the job that
It
I'm
might be. I don't know. I honestly was gonna say Nigel Pearson on Watford, because I'm just so biased. I love that guy. I think he's funny. I think he's just such a energetic leader of men. He might be a little harsh towards some people, but
he has
I don't know.
really inspired Watford with them being 17th.
Yeah, yeah.
I
But I don't know who I'd put at third.
I feel like honestly, like it should have obviously been. I'm really blanking on his name right now. Tottenham's old manager, who I absolutely loved.
Oh yeah, Mauricio Pochettino. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it should
yeah.
have been Poch, but got rid of him because the team was injury prone.
Yeah, I was gonna say Poch, but I realized that he's not in the picture anymore.
Isn't that just the best? And Frank Lampard is a huge question mark because his team is just a bunch of young kids. So
Yeah, yeah. Again, another one of those coaches who've kind of had a roller coaster. Also, pretty unlucky. Pretty unlucky season. I mean, I look back at the Man U game at the start of the season when they lost 4-0. I mean, Chelsea hit the post twice. Got a couple of unlucky calls against them. I mean, like that game could have been completely different. And I feel like that's happened a lot with him. Players just need to kind of clean up their touches and just learn how to kind of be cool in front of goal, cool and calm. I mean, they have a bunch of young players, so over time, I guess like that'll come with it.
So if you look on the standings, it's basically pretty close between 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah,
It's 3 points between Chelsea and Man U, and 2 points between Man U and Wolves and Sheffield. And then
yeah,
Tottenham and Arsenal are basically the ugly stepsisters at 8 and 9, just being like they're in the back and they were like we were once really good, and now they're just chilling in the
yeah.
back. But if you had to be clairvoyant or Rom for a minute and really think either biasly or unbiasedly, who do you think is going to be your 4, 5, and 6 when the season's over?
I think it might just stay how it is. Unfortunately, as a Manchester United fan, because their energy. So looking from Manchester United's perspective, they had a lot of energy before the quarantine happened. A lot of like fire, and they're at the peak of their form. But that with the quarantine, that might have kind of slowed their momentum down a little bit. So I feel like they might stay there. I don't think Wolves will overtake them, and I don't think Man U will overtake Chelsea because Chelsea they don't have that bad of a roster, and they do work well as a team together. So I think it might just stay how it is.
I think
But I'm obviously rooting for Manchester United to take over Chelsea.
I think as a
So,
Chelsea fan myself, I am kind of concerned. I feel like the team is basically a 3 point higher, same story Man U team where we're just all over the place, except I would say
yeah,
more into Chelsea's part is that it's all young kids trying to figure it out. I mean, like 5 of our players basically have played in the Prem for less than 2 years.
right. Yeah,
So, and it's like our stalwarts are Azpilicueta and Conte currently doesn't want to get out of his car because of the coronavirus. So that's pretty sweet. But I understand it at the same time, obviously. And Conte is like arguably one of the best Chelsea players of the past 20 years. So
yeah,
not
yeah,
not hating on a guy for being like, you know what, I like living because you know what, this might come as a shock. I do too, and I wouldn't want to do it when your team. I think honestly, if Chelsea didn't have Conte, obviously huge game changer, it would probably not
yeah,
drop us out of the top 6 though.
yeah. I don't think so either.
It would probably drop us out of even at the way Kovacic is playing this season, which is literally better than I think anyone ever anticipated Mateo Kovacic ever being.
Yeah,
I mean,
I do like Kovacic though, so I'm happy with the way he's playing.
yeah, I feel like the only issue with Chelsea ever is goalkeeping. And there's a lot of hate out there for manager of the year, Kepa.
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah,
but you know, at the same time, like the kid's young too, and it's like everyone can basically you can argue both ways for Chelsea. You could be like they're inconsistent, or you can say they're young. And either way, even though they're supposed to be opposite ends of the argument, they're basically the same argument. That's
yeah,
why they're
yeah.
up and down.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, young players are going to be inconsistent, so I mean, I feel like it's the same discussion. And Kepa does get a lot of hate. Kepa is a good goalkeeper. Um, and he is also, I mean, he is inconsistent. He makes some errors, but I mean, so does De Gea. So, I mean, I don't know. A lot of people compare him to Kepa to Oblak because they're the same age. But like, I feel like that's such an unfair comparison
Wait,
for
what?
both
They're the
players.
same age?
Yeah, yeah, they're the
Holy
same age.
God.
That
Kepa
so
looks like he's like a
that's one of the
preteen.
reasons. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I feel like Kepa does get a lot of hate because when you put them next to each other, Oblak is what are they 24, 25? I know they're the same age, so
That's
they're both
my
20.
point is the same.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But yeah, they're the same age, and Oblak is an all-star goalkeeper. He's in the discussion for top 3 or top 5 goalkeepers in the world, and Kepa is obviously nowhere near there, but he has potential. Um, he has the potential to become a really good goalkeeper. So I feel like he does definitely get unfair treatment. Um, yeah, and in that sense, I feel like Chelsea and Man U are kind of similar. I remember the start of the season. Their rosters were, I mean, pretty similar in terms of age. Like they had the two of the youngest rosters in the league. So that's that's part of the reason why they're both inconsistent and they have to find their form and their players. So
Yeah, the major difference is that Man U used their transfer window effectively, and Chelsea decided to appeal their transfer ban to do nothing with it. So I'm really glad we threw a temper tantrum and begged to do something when we're just like, you know what? Thanks for giving it to us, but we're better than that. So
yeah,
we don't need some scummy transfer window. It's not
it's
like our
definitely
entire
impressive.
team just went through like their entire team just basically got done with their freshman year of college.
Right? Yeah, it's definitely impressive how Chelsea is managing to be fourth with not really, I mean, doing nothing in the transfer window and having such a young roster compared to Man U, who obviously have spent so much money in the recent years and still have a young roster and consistency. So definitely impressive that Chelsea is where they are, but they're also compared to like they're going up against Man U and Wolves and Sheffield. So on the other end, it's not really that cool.
Yeah, it's pretty
No,
impressive.
it's
At
still
the same
impressive.
time,
Yeah.
it's kind of weak because we suck
No,
and everyone else below us sucks.
yeah, no, I'm just kidding. It is impressive. So
So Leicester City a few years ago was the darling of the Premier League, and now it seems like they have regained their form, like out of nowhere. And
yeah,
what do you feel like is really the key to this? Because is it just Vardy being like kind of resemblant of the well, Vardy ever since that breakout season's been very solid for Leicester the entire
very
time.
consistent, very
So,
solid. Yeah,
so what really is the difference? Did they find like their Mahrez replacement, or was it who's really stepped up for this team? You think?
yeah. I mean, look at the team. Like they have some good players on that team. Like they have a goalkeeper, consistent. They have James Madison. I mean, they have Vardy. They have they just have. I think they have a fun roster. It's young, but it's also they have leaders on that team. And they have a group. They have a great manager. I think Brendan Rodgers is a phenomenal manager. So I
And
think
you
that
earned
like
fifth.
yeah. You are the fourth best manager in the Premier League. Good job. Um,
Phenomenal.
according to me. But yeah, no, he I think he's a great manager. So I think when you put it all together, they have wild cards, they have consistency, they have leadership, and they just have a fun roster with a great manager. That's a good team.
It seems like the key to a Leicester team being successful isn't even Mahrez, like I pointed to. It's them having a stalwart center defensive mid
Yeah,
like Conte, which they searched to find, and now they have it with Ndidi, who's
yeah,
basically like I don't want to say Conte 2.0. I wouldn't even say Conte 1. I would say like Conte 0.75. Because
yeah.
he's not
I
Conte, but he's like
yeah, he's
he checks
definitely not
most of the
Conte.
boxes.
Yeah, he checks most of the boxes, but I honestly I put him in a slightly different category because he has um
An ability to
strength.
score.
Yeah, he has strength. He has height compared to Conte, of course. But he's what is he like 5'10", 5'11"? That's taller than Conte.
I mean, most
Um,
kids who get to like age 8 are taller, but
yeah, with the jumping ability. I mean, he has the ability to win headers in the midfield. So I mean, he's all around just a solid holding midfielder.
so like we talked about a little while ago, Tottenham and Arsenal, the ugly stepsisters, are really struggling
Yeah,
this season. And which team? They're basically identical. I feel like with their issues in different, like they both are super plagued with issues, and
yeah,
they're standing on the overall table is basically the same as what I meant. And
right.
which team do you think honestly has a better roadmap to becoming a better team at this point in the future? I'm not saying this season, but like what team can plan out and fix their team quicker, you think?
Hmm. That's a tough question. I don't know which one of them I think is going to have a better future at the moment. But I think I'm leaning towards Tottenham, um, because I mean if Harry Kane comes back and decides to play for Tottenham, decides to be the leader that he is, I think with the goal scoring ability, Tottenham could be a completely different team than they are now. So
What are the odds you think that Harry Kane actually stays though?
Honestly, I'm not really sure. I've heard different rumors. I've heard rumors that he wants to play under Mourinho, and I've heard rumors that he wants to go to Man U, but that's every player, so I guess it doesn't really matter.
Every player wants Man U. We're glorious.
Yeah. So I'm not really sure. I mean, if he decides to play, then I think they could be. I'd give them the edge over Arsenal.
What are you talking about? Arsenal has been awesome for years. Peak form. Yeah. They have one of the best striking duos in the Premier League, and they're in ninth. You do the math.
Yeah. That I don't know. It's really tough though because they do have Aubameyang and Lacazette. And I feel like that's something that Tottenham does. They do lack. They don't have the attacking ability that Arsenal does, but right. I don't think Arsenal has a defense. So
that is a great counterpoint.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Tottenham's future, if you take Harry Kane out of it, completely relies on if Son can be one of the top 6 players in the Prem.
Yeah. Yeah. So Son is a class player though. He has everything. I mean, he has the finishing ability. He's cheeky. He's clever. And he is fast too. So
he just did his service. Great guy. Always respects the medal.
Yeah.
Have we really seen the max of what we think Dele Alli is going to be, or is there this other level that like we've hoped to see but haven't?
I think we have seen his abilities. I know when Mourinho came to the picture, Dele Alli just went on a really hot run of goals. So there's that. And also a year or two ago, Dele Alli was supposed to be like one of the most talented English players in the squad that they had. So I think we have. I think he just needs to find his form, his consistency. Yeah, and maybe we try to become a better leader. I don't really see him being a leader on the field. Sometimes he's hot-headed and gets carried away. I think he needs to start kind of growing up. I still see him as a kid, if that makes sense.
Yeah. He's like Jesse Lingard, the 29-year-old kid.
Yeah, he's just a way better version of Jesse Lingard.
I'm sure Tottenham fans would love to hear that.
I mean, he actually has talent, though, so I would like to hear that as a Tottenham fan. As a Man U fan, I'd love to hear if someone was like, yeah, Jesse Lingard's really talented, but
I don't hear that from anyone. And
I don't hear that ever, yeah.
I'm still waiting. And they'll be like, don't worry, in like 4 years he'll develop into a star. He'll be like 25, right? No, he'll be like 34. What? What's happening?
I thought he was a youth player. Yeah.
I thought they were just giving him like a tap-in game. Like, go ahead, we're playing Burnley. Go for it. If you had to pick any team that benefited from the break the most, outside of Liverpool, who doesn't need it, who would be the one team that you're like, this is actually the best case scenario for them?
I think honestly, I think I'd say Tottenham, because they had too many injuries in the season. So if some of those injuries those injured players start coming back to fitness, I think we might see a completely different Tottenham.
And Mourinho running his illegal practices before anyone was allowed to in the first place.
Yeah.
Who is Tottenham going to get back that you think is really their game changers?
I think I feel like it all revolves around Harry Kane. If he can come back and just kind of be a leader for the rest of the season, they could honestly jump up to 5th because they're not that far away from Man U. They're like 4 points away.
Yeah,
so.
They're even 2 points away from 6th.
Yeah. So they're definitely still in the discussion. Yeah. So I think Harry Kane. I'm not actually sure how long his injury is supposed to be.
So to counter that, I guess, what would you think which team was hurt the most by this break?
I might go with Man U. I just think that they were really in form before this, and again, like they were just a completely different team than for the first half of the season. So I think if they can continue that form, then that's great. But if they can't, then we'll definitely see the effects of the quarantine on them. It's either them or Liverpool. I know Liverpool is still going to win the title, but it just sucks that it has to be dragged out for them. I kind of feel bad, but
What do you think Liverpool's going to do when they win, though? Are they just going to try to go for the points record, or do you think that it's going to be they're just like, all right, well, we're just going to sling around our U16s and just have them run wild?
yeah, not really sure. If they wanted to continue, I think they could, but or they could just start playing some youth players because the season's kind of it's not really the same anymore. A lot of the managers are complaining about the rule changes and all the differences that are going to come into play. So a lot of them are saying that the integrity of the game is going to be lost with all these rule changes. So they might just start playing youth players because it's kind of not the same season.
Yeah, so like in other major sports, like there's been the conversation that like whoever's crowned champion of the season's gonna have like an asterisk being like this was the COVID season, so it doesn't really count. But you don't think that would even remotely apply to Liverpool because of how well they're playing, right? Like everyone's basically already settled on the idea they're gonna win.
Yeah, it'd be pretty cruel to do that because I mean, if Arsenal beats Man City and Liverpool beats Everton in the first fixture, in the first match day week, then I mean they win the title there. So it'd be tough to put an asterisk next to their title.
Where does this
I don't think I'd do that.
Where do you think this Liverpool team lies in your lifetime for like quality teams? Because you've been watching soccer for a long time. I not as much as you, but obviously this is like it looks on paper like an historically great team. I've watched a lot of their games and they just look like even when they're down, they've been down. I remember specifically they were down against Burnley at some point in the season, like 2-0 in the 80th minute, and I remember I was like, "Oh, DraftKings, we're just gonna bet the Liverpool win here," and then it was a 3-2 game and Mane absolutely went off. So I feel like they're one of the best teams I've ever seen, but I would like to know, with you being such an avid fan, where you lie.
Yeah, I mean they're the team to beat, and I think their competition isn't as fierce as other teams in the past. I don't think their competition in terms of like Man City at least this season, Man City hasn't been at their best in the Premier League. And there's Leicester, and then there's Chelsea and Man U. Chelsea, Man U, both young, inconsistent teams. And then there's Wolves, Sheffield, Tottenham, Arsenal are completely underachieving. So I think in terms of competition, it hasn't been that tough for them. I don't think that's not saying that like they don't deserve the title as much as they do. I mean, they're clearly the best team in the Premier League right now. Yeah, I on paper they definitely do rank very high compared to other teams in the past. But I think the Premier League is loved for its intensity and its competition. And a good example year of that was when Aguero won the season in the last shot of the game, off of goal difference. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, off of goal difference over Man U. They were there. Man U, Man City were head to head. And it's tough for me to say, but that probably is the greatest season I've watched because of its intensity, its competition, and when a team is 25 points clear on top, some would say that it's been kind of a boring season. They just kind of run away with it from the first game. So there's that. There hasn't been really much competition in the Premier League, but they also went to 2 Champions Leagues in a row. So.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you think that they have to win this Champions League in order to like cement them as like one of the best teams we've seen of all time? If they keep up this type of form?
Yeah. So I don't know. I wouldn't say if they keep this up for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, then for sure they're in a discussion. But as of right now, I wouldn't really do that. Not yet, because it's not really fair to teams like the '99 Manchester United team or the Real Madrid and Barcelona teams of this past decade. I mean, Real Madrid won. They've won four. They won 4 Champions Leagues in 6 years. Barcelona dominated the La Liga for 10 years. So I don't think it's fair to put them in that discussion.
Uh,
But in terms of the Premier League in the last couple of years, I'd say hands down, like they're definitely number one. So
I guess as a final segue for here is how do you think this is going to affect the Champions League as a whole? I mean, I've heard that they want to move the final, but that's really all I've heard for what they're expecting. Are they expecting these same like rule changes you discussed at the beginning of the podcast in Champions League as well?
yeah, I'm not sure what the date they set is. So like the Premier League, all 92 fixtures that are left to play are that need to be played are going to be finished before August 2nd. So that's a little less than a month and a half of games.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not really sure what their plan is, but if they've set a date that they said we are going to finish this season no later than this day, I don't know if they've done that yet, but yeah, I mean it definitely will affect it though because Champions Leagues are that you play a home leg and then an away leg, so you kind of use the fans to your advantage. And when there are no fans,
You're
the
just
team
kind of
with
playing in a neutral
yeah
arena.
yeah, and the teams with like the better rosters, I feel like will have the advantage. And I think Liverpool plays with the crowd. They're such an energetic team. They might not play the beautiful game sometimes. They score a lot of scrappy goals, I'd say. But I mean, championship teams do that. They win scrappy and they win games that they're not supposed to win. So I mean, Manchester United did that for 10 years. So I mean, I'm not discrediting Liverpool for playing a certain style. But I'm just saying that like they always play with the fans. Anfield is a fortress. Everyone says so. When the fans aren't on your side, when that's a big part of your game, I think it will affect for sure the way they perform in the Champions League games. I mean, when Liverpool came back and beat Barcelona when they're down 3-0, they were going to Anfield, and it's like people are scared to play in certain stadiums. And then when they won 4-0, I think that was a big part of that was the fans. So yeah.
Do you think because the Champions League the way it's set up anyway, regardless of where it is played, because of like how much time is between each round, even that like this gap in time won't affect the level of play that much in that sense? Like regardless of the COVID thing, just saying like in terms of time it's been since they last played.
Um,
Because these are like all elite
yeah,
teams left. Like we've moved up onto like so far into the Champions League that like it's really just the elite teams left.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm not really sure. I'm interested to see what it's going to be like. Liverpool does have a good roster, so they might compete. I'm not really sure what the other teams are up to though. Because I know a rule that is set is if a player gets tested positive, they do have to isolate for 7 days. I'm not really sure. There isn't really a ruling on whether multiple players get tested positive and what goes on from there.
Oh yeah, like they don't know
Yeah,
like how the team as a whole is gonna have to react to it. I would
yeah,
imagine that they're gonna have to. That's gonna be such a. It's like all right, so I've read over like the past 2 weeks, Bleacher Report like constantly updates like because the BPL has been doing screenings like during
yeah,
training. And I saw for a few days it was like one player, then two players, then three players, and then three players, and then now there was one where there was no new tests, but like those are all like it was one player. Like we don't, it doesn't seem like they're doing anything to the teams, but I mean that was like in training. Like this isn't
yeah,
in match day. Like if someone's positive during match day with how close you like, okay, in soccer you're not like at each other's hips the whole time,
yeah.
but
Not the whole time. Yeah,
for the most part, I'd say for like 30% of the game, you're in close quarters.
yeah. I mean, if it, like defenders have to on set pieces, especially corner kicks. I mean, you're like hugging the opponent. You don't want them to move, and So I mean that is a risk right there.
It's going to be
So I
very
mean,
interesting for Champions League. I feel like it's easier in a weird way to get rid of the Champions League and the Euro League than it is to get rid of the individual leagues,
yeah, for sure.
which would be really fun for Man City because, like we said, this is it.
Yeah,
They'd be like, you know what, we can get rid of it. Pep somewhere is like, no! Just like that doesn't seem the logical thing to do. Not saying it for any other reason or anything. Mourinho's in the corner like, we can get rid of it. Like, it'd be fine.
yeah,
Mourinho probably like went up to the committee. He's like, yeah, you know, like I usually am all for it, but like this year I'll let it slide. Like we don't have to do it. And then they'd be like, I never missed one.
yeah,
Which would also really suck for Man U because they keep in fifth and you no longer have a reason to play. I say this and Chelsea's going to go slide into eighth. Then I'll just be
yeah.
like, look where we ended up.
Yeah, Man, you could overtake Chelsea. They could. I mean, they're a completely different team than they were before because of Bruno Fernandes. But we'll see. We'll see what goes on there.
All right, Aram. This has been great. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for just making all the Man U fans out there hopeful. That was nice. I'm sure if Owen's
Yeah, thanks,
listening,
man.
one of our old roommates, then he is probably enjoying himself right now.
Yeah, dude. Shout out to Air Ireland. Yeah, absolutely.
Big shout out to Old Air.
Yeah.
All right, Aram. Thanks for coming on. We'll be sure to have you on again soon once the season actually kicks off again.
Yeah, totally. I'm so down to
This will be
to come back. Yeah.
so sweet. You would not believe how much I've Venmoed Aram to be on this week. All right,
Yeah,
Aram.
thanks
For coming on.
Yeah, thank you. See ya.
All right, thanks to Aram for coming on the Cup podcast and talking all things Premier League soccer. It's going to be the closest thing we have to sports for a while, and I feel like I close every podcast with talking about how we don't have sports. And you know what? It's looks like it's all about to turn around soon. So I hope with all that's going on in the world right now that we all can take some time and enjoy some sports. All right, thanks for listening, and tune in this Friday with Ian Lenahan.